speaker today, and after his special talk, will follow by the dialogue or Q&A session. Okay, I think Rainbow is come back now. So
okay, I'm sorry for the frequent cut-off. So just over 100 years ago in Myanmar, one very learned Buddhist monk who was also dedicating himself urgently to meditation practice. He wasn't quite sure. I mean, he was looking for a meditation technique through the text and also through her famous meditation teacher. There was around the turn of the century, last century. Then he went to a region called Sakai and to a cave monk, to a cave monk, to ask the meditation teacher practicing in isolation in solitude in the cave about meditation technique. And the answer he got was, okay, why you are looking elsewhere when there is the Satipatthana Sutta? So you should look at the Satipatthana. So he came back and he looked at the Satipatthana thoroughly, Sutta thoroughly. And he designed a practice out of this. And that practice, based on the Satipatthana Sutta, is what Mahasi Sayadaw had learned from. Okay, and it became Mahasi method. Even MCU Mahathirila follows this, and what Mahatma in Bangkok also follows this. But this is not the only meditation practice in Myanmar. If you combine meditation technique, there may be 12 different meditation techniques. Some of them openly use the Satipatthana Sutta as a structure. Some of them, they use only a part of the instruction, not the structure. But for Mahasi, both structure and the spirit, if I may say so, of the Satipatthana Sutta is used for their practice. Of course, I'm aware of the contour.
Okay, for all participants, please wait patiently for Venerable connection to connect again. So most Venerable mentioned about the practice of mindfulness based on the foundation of mindfulness. He mentioned that this is not the only technique that has been practiced. Many techniques has used the structure of the foundation of mindfulness. Okay, Venerable has come back. Please continue, Venerable. Please also unmute your microphone if you may. Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay. Venerable Sayadaw, for example, in Austria, he has written criticizing the Satipatthana Sutta as understood in the tradition. It's available online. Okay, I don't want to go into detail of that. I just want to say that his criticism has not affected the practice in both the living tradition, in different meditation communities in the East and also in the West. Venerable Nyanaponika, a German monk, a German scholar monk who practiced with Mahasi Sayadaw, and then set up the Buddhist Publication Society in Sri Lanka, the teacher of Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. He wrote a book called The Heart of Buddhist Meditation. In that, he detailed the practice of Mahasi Sayadaw and also Mahasi Sayadaw's teacher, whom I mentioned earlier. He also summed up for maybe for people who are not very used to text, and one chapter on bare attention. One chapter is called bare attention, meaning the Satipatthana talks about just paying attention without judgment, without judging good or bad, without passing moral judgment. And he said this is very important to overcome our preconceived notion, our prejudices. This is very important because our prejudices, our preconceived notion, these are detrimental to peace. Professor John Campbellson from MIT take this, including Professor Mark Williams from Oxford University. They take from Venerable Nyanaponika about the importance of non-judgmental mindfulness. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, we have 13 chapters. But there are two things that the Buddha emphasized everywhere. It doesn't matter which topic out of the 13 you choose to practice as your meditation object. Those two, one of them is called definition of mindfulness. Satipa sampat atapi sampajano satima vineya loki abhija tomanasam. That's the definition. Practitioner by Joseph Goldstein has also taken from Vanu Analayo Satipatthana, because Vanu Analayo from Germany, he has done
There were like 13 chapters, and Venerable tried to also mention about bare attention. When we practice, we observe without judgment, try to observe the four foundation of mindfulness, which, okay, Venerable has just come back, so I will let him continue.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to finish it off, okay. In the Satipatthana Sutta, it says, Atavi, that's effort, right effort. Sampajana, that is the wisdom factor. We have two wisdom factors from the path, Eightfold Path, right view, right intention. Satima, that's mindfulness. Okay, those three they are mentioned so that we can overcome the two most deeply seated emotion, that is like and dislike, apicca.
Okay, I think he will come back soon. Yes. So Venerable is mentioning about atapi and the right effort, sampajano, and the quality that can overcome the like and dislike feeling. So please wait a little, patient. I think he is back now. And for most participants, please note that we will have the brainstorming session at the end of our seminar today. So yes, let Venerable continue his speech.
The other piece important in the Satipatthana Sutta is the ability, the need to see something in common with other people. Usually we say anicca, dukkha, anatta. This is a common characteristic. It talks about this, but mainly I like to put it today that, okay, we need to look at things that we share rather than the things that superficially look very different in order for peace to rise. Again, I like to quote Professor Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication. He talks about communication that blocks compassion in chapter 2. And one of them is called moralistic judgment, to judge people, to be judging people. So this is from textual point of view, that you can also see the fruit in the mind, the brain, in curing obsessive and compulsive disorder, and all this therapy, the role of mindfulness in establishing peace within an individual as well as within a community. And perhaps, if I may say so, nationally and also internationally. So I think I have this much time for today. I'm sorry for the frequent cuts of the internet, and I leave this short presentation for your consideration, for your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venerable Professor Dr. Prakhamai Dhammasami, and founder of Chan State Buddhist University, for an insightful speech. So may I invite Dr. Sakchai Sakabusha, a former Director of International Law Subdivision, Legal Affairs Bureau's Custom Department, and a current lecturer at the International Buddhist Study College of MCU, to give a thank you speech to the most venerable, please. Dr. Sakchai.
On behalf of International Buddhist Studies College, มหาจุฬาลงกรณราชวิทยาลัย University, and all participants, I would like to pay my respect and my gratitude to Venerable Professor Dr. พระคำหมายธรรมสมิ founder of Chan State University, Myanmar, for giving all of us the speech on mindfulness on Theravada tradition from textual perspective to enhance a peaceful society. We have gained a lot of knowledge and wisdoms, especially how to establish mindfulness in one's own mind. We have gained a lot of knowledge, including different aspects to create and uphold our peaceful societies. These apparently benefit all Buddhists, contributing to sustainable world peace. Thank you very much for your kindness, the most vulnerable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Venerable and Dr. Sakchai. And next, we will display a video of Dhamma message by Prajan Kamai Dhammasami, the most venerable, will lead a mindfulness meditation to reduce stress. So at this point in time, I would like to invite all of you to take a mindful moment to practice mindful meditation together with the most venerable, please.
With this, I'd like to offer you mindfulness practice to reduce stress. The first is mindfulness of breathing. Okay, now, if you are at home or maybe sitting in your office, now it's time to take a few minutes of your time, your working time, and then focus on breathing. You may close your eyes if you like. And breathe in slow, deep, and gentle. Breathing in slow, deep, and gentle. Breathing out again gently. Now we will count our breathing, just the in-breath. We take the in-breath slow and gentle. Count 1 to 5. For the out-breath, we just release it naturally. Breathing in, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathing out gently. Breathing in, count 1 to 5. Breathing out, let go. Breathing in, count 1 to 5. Breathing out, let go. Breathe in, supplying oxygen to your lung as much as you can, as if inflating your lung. By now, you will notice that the muscles in your forehead are tense. This is because of stress. Breathing in and out, then acknowledge tension and stress in your forehead. Acknowledge tension in your forehead. Do not ignore it. Acknowledge it, accept it with compassion. Breathe in and out. Relax your forehead. Now you may be aware of tension around your face, especially your cheeks, left and right, your lips and your chin. Those tensions, they are signs of stress. Please acknowledge them, that they are there, that these stresses, they are a response to the current situation. Breathing in and out, slow and gentle. What about your shoulders? Are they tense as well? Your arms, your hands, your fingers, are they also tense? They are just giving you a message that your mind is very stressed out. So deep and slow breathing, deep and slow breathing, and relax the body. Many people in the television stations working round the clock to inform the people. Please acknowledge your stress. People in the banking sector, in the police department, in the military, in the Ministry of Healthcare, in Myanmar, in the Ministry of Health and Sports, and government officers. Acknowledge your stress. Breathe in and out, slow and gentle. If you don't have time, at least do it for 1 minute. 1 full minute. If you have time, please do more. This is for you, for your family, for your company, for your department, and for your country, even for the whole world, that you take time and reduce stress. Slow and gentle breathing, deep and slow breathing. Now revisit anxiety that you have had during the day, especially when you use sanitizer to wash your hands, when you use soap and water to wash your hands. Each time you do that, there is anxiety, there's fear of the virus. So definitely there is stress at that time. Revisit and acknowledge that stress with mindfulness. When you use toilet, when you eat, when you hold your mobile phone, after you have spoken to somebody outside. So revisit those anxiety, those anxious moments. Acknowledge them. Breathe in and out, slow and gentle. Breathe in and out, slow and gentle.
Please gently open your mind, open your eyes, and may I anumodana to everyone for practicing meditation together. I would like to invite everyone to share loving kindness and dedicate the merits to our body, our mind, and to all beings around the world. Wish them to be happy, free from physical and mental sufferings, free from anger, free from conflicts and violence. Wish them all happiness and peaceful life. Sadhu, 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 anumodhami. Next, please allow me to move to the Q&A session on sustaining happiness through mindful living in the current situation by Pratama Pacharayana Muni or Patanjali, the Chief Spiritual Advisor of Panyaprati Foundation from Thailand. Today we feel honored and privileged that the Most Venerable has accepted our invitation to join the seminar on the International Day of Peace. Patanjali has written many books on Buddhist themes in the Thai language, a number of which have been translated into other languages, including Chinese, French, Italian, and Portuguese. His latest English work, Without and Within, is a general introduction to the Theravada Buddhist tradition, and the recently published Stillness Flowing is an important biographical work that details the life of the teaching of Ajahn Chah, which took over 2 decades in the making. The Dhamma teaching and meditation retreat that Ajahn Chayasaro gives at regular intervals and at the nearby retreat center offer inspiration to both lay Buddhists and monastics. He is also a key figure in the movement to integrate Buddhist development principles into the Thai education system. Many of his Dhamma talks are broadcast on radio, television, and digital media. In 2011, Ajahn Chayasaro was granted an honorary doctorate in Buddhist pedagogy by MCU and received a monastic title from His Majesty King Rama X in the 2020. And right now, the most venerable Ajahn Chayasaro is here with us. กราบนมัสการเจ้าค่ะ And just to remind everyone, this is being recorded, and you can either ask question by tapping the hand icon or raise your hand for a question, or you can type your question in the chat and then we will read them. So please feel free to ask your question to Venerable. And on this occasion, may I respectfully invite the most venerable Ajahn Chayasaro to start Q&A session. Please, Venerable.
Yes, good afternoon. And this is the most important topic, really, isn't it? That how can we, living in a world of many, many challenges, and in which people are affected by and conditioned by defilements, all the causes and conditions of the lack of peace. How can we increase the amount of peace in the world and reduce the causes and conditions for conflict? And be happy to reply to any questions on this topic and how to use the teachings of the Buddha to survive and flourish in these very difficult times. So please
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes, look like Venerable, look like we have a question. The first question from, let me check, please. From Sister Lim Mun Shin, a PhD student in Buddhist studies. Her question is, how could you define the terms of sustainable happiness from your perspective? Please, Venerable.
Well, yeah, this is a very complex question. You have to really unpick the meaning of the word happiness. And I think the one way of looking at happiness is in terms of its sustainability, and that we can make maybe a value judgment saying that the more sustainable kinds of happiness are superior to the less sustainable. And what I mean by the less sustainable are the pleasures and the happiness that arises through sense contact, through sight and sound, and smell and taste and physical sensations. Now that sense contact happiness, or karma, is constricted and affected by so many different causes and conditions over which we have little or no control. So the ability for us to gain and enjoy the sights and sounds and so on. It can be dependent on our physical health. It can be dependent on how much money we have. It can be dependent on so many different conditions. And as I say, it's very difficult to control them. And in fact, the very effort to try to control them can often lead to many other problems. It can lead to people becoming less careful about their behavior and breaking precepts, or they can become anxious and depressed. And so all kinds of individual mental problems and illness, social problems arising from the craving to enjoy this kind of pleasure, this kind of short-lived happiness. So for this reason, in Buddhism, we look on this kind of happiness as, we can call it happiness if we wish. I think it's quite useful in English to be able to distinguish between pleasure and happiness. So we can say these pleasures are ultimately unfulfilling and unsustainable. I'll give you an obvious example. If you were to, let's say you were able to buy the most beautiful painting in the world, or many, many millions of dollars, let's say. And even if you like art, you could how long could you stand in front of that painting and enjoy it? You know, after a few minutes, you get bored, probably not as long as a few minutes, or your legs would start to ache, you want to sit down, or you get thirsty, or you need to go to the toilet. And so any sensual pleasure is always going to be undermined by the needs of the physical body and the inability of the mind to enjoy anything for more than a few seconds. Now, we have, fortunately in our life, we have other means of experiencing happiness. And firstly, the one which in Buddhist community I think we're very familiar with is the giving of dana, sharing, helping others without any desire for reward. And giving and helping others is a cause and a condition for a happiness that stays with us. So it's not like ever present in your mind, but we can observe that even after we have acted well and kindly and helped others, time may pass, even as long as a year or many years. And yet when we remember that act of goodness and kindness, then we feel happy. And also if we remember acts of goodness and kindness of others who've helped us, for instance, then that's also a cause of happiness. So that's a much more sustainable kind of happiness and a wholesome kind of happiness which has no drawbacks or has no brings no suffering in its wake, as its shadow. Then there is the happiness of keeping precepts and living within the boundaries of precepts. And for that to be a cause of happiness, you have to be committed to it, see the value of it, and really want to keep the precepts. And then to be able to deal with the pressures and the temptations to break precepts, and then to maintain your commitment to precepts sustainably, and then the sense of freedom from guilt and remorse, and the sense of self-respect and friendship you feel towards yourself are, again, sustainable form of happiness. But ultimately, the most sustainable form of happiness is that which is realized through the cultivation of the mind, bhavana, because the underlying causes of the lack of peace and suffering in our hearts is defilement. And unless we deal with those root causes of greed, hatred, and delusion, then they will always be arising in our minds and destroying or undermining any happiness that we have. So yes, let me just recap very simply. You can say sense pleasures provide a certain amount of happiness and relaxation, and they're the most popular avenues that people follow in the world. But they have many, many drawbacks, and the Buddha pointed out that the drawbacks exceed the benefits. And then we have the kinds of happiness which come from dana, from giving and from sharing, from leading a moral life, and from the abandonment of the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome in bhavana. And because these kinds of happiness are not dependent on external conditions, but from the internal purification of the heart, then they are sustainable.
Okay, thank you very much, Venerable. I think Sister Lim Mun Chin have another question, so please ask your question to Most Venerable.
Namaskar Ajahn. Further to this, I would like to ask, in this current pandemic challenging time, how can you advise us how to develop sustainable happiness? I mean, I would like to know how mindful people help the not so mindful people to be aware that they are not mindful, so that they can become mindful and to sustain happiness together. Thank you, Jan.
Yes, I think first and foremost, whether we are talking about period of pandemic or any other time, that the effort to be a good example to others is probably the most effective. Talking about Dhamma and encouraging others to take up the practice of mindfulness, for instance, is only going to be possible in a small number of cases. As you know, as Buddhists, we are not evangelical, and we don't want to be pushing the Dhamma down anybody's throat, and often people will react to that anyway. But if people show a genuine interest and approach us or seem open to it, then we can humbly share what we know with them. But generally speaking, I think it's being an example of someone who is calm and kind and deals with situations well, without panic, without anxiety, without aggression and fear, and modeling the value of Dhamma practice.
Please wait.
Best thing to practice. And as I say, if people show a genuine interest and you're ready to help and to share that with them. But say as Buddhist monks, we're only allowed to teach someone who expressly asks us to teach. A monk can't just go up to somebody and give them the good news about Buddhism. And I think that's a very important principle, that there has to be an initial interest from the other person. Other than that, then we just try to model the mindfulness and kindness and goodness in our lives.
Thank you so much, Venerable, for your answer. And now we have another participant who would like to ask a question. Venerable Labru Wara, if you're ready, please ask a question to Most Venerable.
So thank you so much, our honorable moderators, and also more respected our venerable monks, and also our privilege honor to all the monks in here, and also our participant. And so my question is to the most venerable, how to make reconciliation process by Buddhist peaceful means according to Theravada and according to your perspective with the mindfulness process.
To reconcile two conflicting groups or parties, you mean?
Reconciliation with the conflicted group with the mindfulness means process.
Yeah, I think one point I would like to make is that especially in the West these days, as you know, mindfulness is a very fashionable concept and a word on everyone's lips. At least the secular form of mindfulness. But I think it's important as bhikkhus, as representatives of the Buddha Dhamma, that we remind people that mindfulness is always embedded within the Eightfold Path, and that it's not like a magic bullet. It's not that mindfulness by itself will have all these wonderful results. And we need to be looking in the threefold training of sila, samadhi, and panya, and sati, or mindfulness, is one factor within the Eightfold Path in the samadhi section of the three trainings. So with any group or two groups of people in some conflict, then again it's a matter of, do they have any interest in mindfulness? Do they see the value of mindfulness? And as mediators, then we start with the raw material that we have. Where are these people and what are the obstacles? So here it's using the wisdom, the yoniso manasikara power to investigate what are the causes and conditions of this conflict. And for instance, it may well be that there is some deep distrust between the two different groups. And then we need to be able to find some means of dealing with that distrust, because before there can be any effective communication, there has to be a certain amount of trust. That's the foundation for any kind of communication. I think it's also important to be, we can say mindful if you like, but to be aware of the way that words are being used. It seemed to me that a lot of conflicts come about because people are using words in different ways, same words and different meanings. And so to be able to define the terms and to try to find some common ground. I feel that often there is the impression of strong divisions and conflicts does not always represent the true situation. For instance, let's say Group A has, the first group, say, has three core values. Let's say A, B, and C. And then the second group, the opposing group, shares the same values of A, B, and C. But then when they have to make a choice and to prioritize which comes first, then group one always puts A first and B second. And the second group always puts B first and A second. So it would appear superficially you have a very strong division between those who support A and those who support B. whereas in fact, both groups support A and B, they just can have different ideas about which is more important. So I think being mindful, whether it's as a mediator or as a member of a group in a conflict, then, so I say, trying to find common ground, trying to create a foundation of trust, trying to find if there are core values that can form a basis for discussion, then defining terms. Then the very important area is the whole topic of akati or bias. So we have chandakati, tosakati, mohakati, bhayakati. So the akati or the bias due to greed and desire, to anger, aversion, to fear, and to to delusion and to fear. So greed can be seen for sensual rewards, for wealth, for power, for fame, for prestige, and so on. And fear can be for the loss of those things. The loss of face is often a major factor in these kinds of conflicts, and finding a way of presenting a position or an argument such that the other side can accept that position without feeling that they lose face, without feeling some humiliation and loss. So, what's commonly called win-win, looking for, I think that's compatible with the Buddhist approach. And then the one more area I would suggest is worthy of great deal of attention is the attachment to views and opinions, and when we identify with a particular view and opinion, then it becomes very difficult to change and to give up some wrong opinion, because it's any attack or any criticism of the view of the belief is perceived as being a personal attack, and everything is very personal. So being able to step back from one's views and beliefs and see them, this is a view, this is a belief, and I have these reasons why I uphold this view or this belief, but yet not attaching it in the way that the Buddha himself often criticized, that only I am right, everyone else is wrong. That is the way of fanaticism and conflict. So being mindful of views, being mindful of bias, being mindful of shared values, these are a few ideas for creating some reconciliation between conflicting groups or even individuals.
Sadhu Ka, thank you very much. Yes.
So thank you so much, Most Venerable, and thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Lapu, for your question. And next we have a question from So Tun Kri. If you're ready, you can turn on your microphone and ask a question, please. Are you there? If you're not here, let me skip to Ki Tao. If you're ready, please turn on your microphone and ask yes, please.
Hello? Hello? Am I allowed to
yes.
ask the question?
Yes, later after Ki Tao, because yes, I will give you the.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. I understand the role of karma at the individual level, which explains the differences between people such as rich and poor, for example. However, how does karma affect countries or nations or group of people? For example, why some countries suffer more than other countries in time of pandemic or natural or man-made disasters?
Yes, the Buddha did not say that everything in life is the result of karma. It's one of the causes. And in fact, he was critical of the Jain religion, for example, in insisting that everything was caused by karma. And there are natural causes of natural disasters. It's just that we live in a material world. The world is like this. There are tsunamis and volcanoes and etc. That's part of the karma, if you like, of being born into such a world. I remember. I hope this doesn't sound too flippant, but many years ago, when the great tsunami took place, I can't remember what year it was now, but there was this kind of question, how was it? What was the karma that resulted in people from all over the world dying on the beaches of Phuket or the people in Indonesia and so on, and what, how did this happen? What was their karma? And my reply was simply cheap airfares. This was the main cause and condition for this, because we live in a world until recently where it's very easy to fly around the world at quite cheaply, that many people were coming on holiday to Southeast Asia during at that end of year time, and that was the reason why so many of them died. And so karma, the Buddha says, don't think about it too much, your head will split apart. It's extremely complex, all the causes and conditions, but I would just like to make this point that karma is only one of the conditioning factors. It may be the main conditioning factor in some cases, but it may be outweighed by other material factors, natural factors, for example.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Venerable. And next, Kun So Tun Ki, if you're ready now, you can ask your question to Most Venerable. Please unmute your microphone so that we can hear you.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to ask you a few questions. So my question is that I read from the Professor Yuval Noah Harari. He said that the behavior cannot be changed without it has implication on political, social, and environment impacts on the society. So my question is that, and I also believe that happiness has different levels, and it has a relationship between individual happiness and to the happiness of the society. So my question is that, if happiness is an attainment, not as a project of the physical, for example, like a drug or a pleasure driven by some physical exercise or some physical pleasure, how does it apply to that, to achieve such kind of the behavior? How does it affect on the bigger community and individual level? My direct question is that I am raised as a Buddhist, But the current situations happening in Myanmar, people are starting to say, including my close friends, because of the Buddhism and Buddhist beliefs, that bad things that happening to Myanmar is happened because we are very easy to forgive. We are always very easy to forget. And those, because of such behavior, the repeated things happening, and the Myanmar is suffering too much right now. And it is also very caused me a big painful in my heart, and I do not find any solutions to answer that things. Thank you, and my question is very long.
Yeah, so a number of points there. One observation that I have when talking about problems in Southeast Asian countries, whether it's Burma or Myanmar or Thailand or so on, is that people tend to lack a wider or historical perspective, if I may say, and particularly in relation to the to countries in the West, in which it's not as though European countries or America has sorted this all out. That there isn't violence and injustice and etc. etc. It's not a goal to aim for, I would say, and huge problems in those societies as well. And I would say that, but let me make a point about anger. And so one of the Western ideas which has kind of seeped into this part of the world now is that anger is necessary to overcome injustice and to make changes that need to be made in a country. And that anger is a proof of sincerity and commitment, and that equanimity means indifference and allows injustice and etc. to carry on. And so there is this implicit criticism of Buddhist values. I would say, first of all, that my opinion, whether it's situation in Thailand or Myanmar or wherever else, is that the problem is that these societies are not Buddhist enough, that there are superficial and mistaken, deviant ideas of Buddha Dhamma, which have been a cause of so many problems. So the Buddhist view is that anger makes you stupid. Basically, anger means that you see things in black and white. You make monsters out of the people that you are opposed to. Your assessment of situations is crude and simplistic, and that your actions lack nuance, lack wisdom, and are ultimately maybe short-term effective, but they're not in the long term able to create any sustainable progress. So equanimity is not a goal in itself. Equanimity is the condition for the appropriate use of wisdom. And once the mind is resting in equanimity, then it has the ability to look into situations in great detail and to understand causes and conditions underlying problems, and to recognize which causes and conditions are beyond our ability to deal with, which should be dealt with first, which should be dealt with later. And so the mind is very subtle and can look in great profundity at the difficult issues that affect every society. So I think that the fact that people who act badly in various ways claim to be and claim a religious tradition and piggyback on Buddhist slogans or ceremonies or teachings to legitimize themselves. This is not, I would say, something from that to assume that there is some problem in the Buddha's teaching. I think it's in the application of them and the interpretation of them. And this is where we need to go back to Buddha Dhamma, because ultimately I believe in countries which have been Buddhist for hundreds of years, thousands of years, that long term the teachings, the wisdom of the Buddha are that which can provide foundation for resolution of conflict that is sustainable and acceptable to all sides of the conflict. So, rather than say, oh, if you're really a Buddhist, well, what you're doing, what you're saying, how is that in harmony with the Buddhist teachings? So we say, well, what is the Buddha really? If we're really Buddhist and we want to be Buddhist, we want a Buddhist society, then what does that really mean in terms of how we relate to each other? As regards happiness, then again, returning to something that I was saying a few minutes ago, then we have certain kinds of pleasure and happiness which are dependent on stimulation of the senses, and that's always going to be problematic. They're not sustainable, they're not ultimately fulfilling, and can lead the greed for them and the fear of losing them when we have them can cause all kinds of problems. The kind of happiness that comes from inner development and the path of the Buddha means that we are developing inner resources and the basis for happiness, which is not dependent on something outside of ourselves. It's very important to develop what we call Niramisa Sukha. So all of the Sukha, the happiness that is derived from stimulation, we call Amisa Sukha. And the Sukha that derives from the training of the mind is called Niramisa Sukha, which means it's independent of external situations. Now, everybody, I think most people would agree that sense pleasure is not ultimately satisfying. There's something about it which is inherently frustrating. But I think for most people, then the position they take is, yeah, this may not be the ultimate kind of happiness, sure, but it's better than nothing. And people are afraid of nothing. So it would take a very imperfect, unsatisfactory happiness over no happiness at all. And if a monk or a spiritual teacher was to say true happiness lies within and you have to realize this true happiness, and to say, yeah, sure, yeah, heard that before. But it just doesn't seem realistic or accessible. But if the work is put into accessing this internal happiness, then subjectively it's beyond question that this is a superior kind of happiness, sustainable kind of happiness. But in terms of its effect on one's life in the world, it changes radically one's relationship to the Amisa Sukha, or the happiness that is derived from stimulation of various kinds, because it's like you've got this inner wealth, and you don't have to be going off in early in the morning until late at night trying to make money, you have this inner resource for yourself. And so that means that the likelihood of behaving in ways that cause suffering to oneself or others, of harming others, of taking advantage of others, etc., is radically reduced because you're not putting all your eggs in that basket anymore. You have an alternative means of realizing and experiencing happiness. And this, I think some evidence for this can be found by the programs of teaching meditation to people with drug addiction. As we know, you can get people into rehab and take people, eventually get people to eliminate their drug habits. But what often happens is that they slip back into them again because they have no alternative happiness, and it's all that they need to feel some pleasure and happiness in their life, and this is the only happiness they know. So the way to take somebody out of that whole realm is to help them to access this inner happiness that comes from the training of the mind and inner virtue. And then one doesn't have that hunger for sense experience or for drug states of mind anymore. So I think that the development of mindfulness and inner happiness, this is never going to be something that we can expect the vast majority of people to really take on, because it's hard work and it requires commitment. But the kinds of, it is at least something to be encouraged and to provide facilities for people and to let people know just the value of it. But most importantly, I think to really make clear that this path of inner happiness is not like a rejection of the world and saying, I don't care what's going on in the world. It's not my business. As long as I make my mind peaceful and calm, then that's good enough for me. But it's when the mind is calm and clear that not only wisdom but compassion arises. These are natural results of a purified mind. And so the mind which is motivated by wisdom and compassion is one which is ready to contribute to one's family and one's community and society in one lives. I believe in a much more effective and constructive way than someone who is motivated by anger and aversion.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Next question, we have a question from Venerable Pranab Baro. So if you're ready, then you can ask a question to the Most Venerable, please.
Take my respected veneration to Venerable Master. My question is, what is the role of the mindful and spiritual leader for conflict resolution and peace building in our modern society from your standpoint, sir?
From which standpoint, sir?
From your standpoints.
Well, again, I think that leadership and the qualities of leadership, Buddhist leadership, something that we really need to be teaching and emphasizing. And I think the really important thing is to be a good example. The reason why in Buddhist societies as Buddhist monks our words have a certain weight is because people believe that we practice what we preach. and we embody the values that we are propagating in society. This is why when monks are living a very comfortable life and physically more comfortable than the lay people that support them, and this is very damaging to Buddha Dhamma and the propagation of Buddhism. So being a good example, and I think that great teachers that I've known, my own teacher, Ajahn Chah, it wasn't just the words that he spoke and the wisdom that came from his mouth, but the way he lived his life, which was so memorable. So being a good example, I think, as a leader, then the thing you want to be able to inspire both love or affection and respect. So if a leader wants and desires to be liked and loved, then that can be problematic, and the relationship with the people who he is responsible for can become distorted. But if he wants to be respected, and then he's got rather kind of harsh and lacking any warmth and personal connection, then that doesn't work either. So the goal is a blend and a harmony between being one who is worthy of affection and love, and one who's worthy of respect. So these are the two first qualities of the Kalyana Mitta, the Kalyana Mitta Dhamma. So being someone who inspires emulation, someone who is patient with his students or the people who he's responsible for, someone who's a good communicator, someone who's able to explain things clearly and in a way that's appropriate to the audience. These are all skills that a good leader needs, and someone who is honest and humble and doesn't get caught up with the power and the fame that may come with positions of authority. So being a leader is a very challenging Dhamma practice, and one that you need to be very, very strong, and certainly one where you need to increase your Dhamma practice rather than compromise on it because of all your responsibilities, because it's a Dhamma practice that keeps you grounded and provides you and keeps you with a steady compass to make sure that you don't get lost and don't get caught up in the loka dhammas, particularly of praise and blame, which everyone in any position of authority has to deal with on some level or another.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Next, we have another question from Mbsr Works. So if you're ready, please unmute your microphone and ask the question.
Thank you. I'm Min. I'm from Myanmar, and my question is somehow connected to the previous question. So this might be a wrap-up question. I'm currently working for some organization that is promoting nonviolent methods in Myanmar. And what we see is currently on the perspectives of Buddhism, there are like two groups on the edge. One is kind of like a conservative Buddhist groups that is trying to maintain Buddhism as an identity or as a nationalist way. They want to protect by using all means, sometimes including violence. And there is another group, like especially youths, open-minded people, liberals, or like revolutionists. They start questioning that, like where is the law of karma, and even this group is criticizing the structures of Buddhist authorities. It is like too rigid, too structural, too authoritarian. So these two groups are too diverse, and this conflict just keep on going. I think this is one of the underlying cultural issues in Myanmar current era. And my question is how the mindfulness or Buddhist practice or engaged Buddhism could be a way to bridge these two extremes, and because otherwise Buddhists will be more diverse and there will be subgroup and we cannot find a common way of peace. So this is my first question. Second is one of these argument coming from this nationalist Buddhism or conservative Buddhism or traditional Buddhism. Buddhists saying that in the past, like country like Afghanistan or Malaysia or Indonesia has been wiped out from other religions. So they need to use even force to protect Buddhism. So how can we convince them that Buddhism is a practice, it's a changes from within, not to have fear or hatred towards other religion? And how can we protect or maintain Buddhism without damaging or without bringing violence? So that's my question, somehow I think related to the previous ones. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Again, I would. I think when trying to create some mutual understanding between each two groups here, between classic kind of conservative and liberal, that we have to be very wary of the polarization that tends to take place. So when someone's pushing the liberal view, then the reaction tends to become that the conservatives become more conservative. When the conservatives become more conservative, then the liberals become, and basically reacting to each other. But I would, first of all, I think absolutely important is a mutual respect, and never to assume that you understand or you have you can be completely sure about the intentions of anybody else, unless you have that psychic power, and very few people do, that you're always interpreting the words and actions of others. You don't actually know what lies behind them. If there is genuine love of Buddhism and wish to sustain it in one form or another, then need to go back to the primary texts. My criticism of if I may, of make this of Buddhism in Burma as compared to Thailand is that there's not really any distinction between primary and secondary or tertiary sources. By that I mean between the Buddha's words and then the words of commentators and sub-commentators over the centuries. They tend to be given equal weight, and I personally, I think this is a mistake. But there are so many suttas in which the Buddha spoke about this kind of situation. The Buddha said, if somebody criticizes unfairly or slanders the Buddha or the Dhamma, if you were to get angry with them, then you are no longer my students, you're no longer my disciples. And that there is a very clear, absolute prohibition on violence under any circumstance. Violence is always wrong. For any debate on this situation, I would say that if you're on the liberal side, then I would go to the primary text and say, okay, you are defenders of the primary text. Well, this is the primary text, and how can you justify violence given these are the Buddha's own words, and that the Buddha's own words should take precedent over those of commentators. I think also it you know, I would say that it has to be recognized on the liberal side also that concern about the behavior of members of other religions is not necessarily, most obviously Islamophobia in every case, and that is too simplistic. I think we have to recognize that there is a really crucial difference between Buddhism as a religion and Islam and Christianity as religions, in that they considered the conversion of other people of other religions to their religion as virtuous and advisable, and something which should be attempted, and it's a goal. Whereas in Buddhism, we have no idea, it's never been the case that we want to convert people of other religions to become Buddhists, and we don't take belief as the primary factor of the principle in Buddhism, but the cultivation of body, speech, and mind. So when a religion is like Buddhism exists together with religions which have an ideal of trying to convert members of that religion to their religion, you're always going to have some possibility of conflict. And I think that I'm, of course, I don't live in Myanmar, and I'm unsure of all that goes on there, but and I'm sure that some paranoia and Islamophobia and overreaction is a factor. But I would say from my own experience in other areas, other parts of the world, that that there has to be some clear guidelines about the propagation of other religions in Buddhist communities, because that otherwise there will be that insecurity and disease, and there will be problems if Buddhists feel that they're not being protected, or that there are unethical propagation or conversion attempts in their areas. So I'm not sure, to what extent that's applicable. This is just a general observation that in the West, particularly, any mention of some disease about the conversion efforts of other religions, and the reaction from Buddhists is almost immediately branded as Islamophobia. And my question is, how accurate is that? How fair is that? And I really don't have the data to be able to make much of to draw much of a conclusion about.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, the Most Venerable. And it was very gracious of the Most Venerable to come and share your wisdom and insight with us today. Next, may I invite Dr. Sakchai Sakabusha, former Director of International Law Subdivisions, Legal Affairs Bureau, Customs Department, and a current lecturer at International Buddhist Study College of MCU, to give a thank you speech to the Most Venerable, please.
On behalf of International Buddhist Studies College, Chulalongkorn Ratchavidyalaya University, and all participants, I would like to pay my respect and my gratitude to Pratham Pacharayana Ajahn Chayasaro, Chief Spiritual Advisor of Panya Prateep Foundation, Thailand, for Q&A on sustaining happiness through mindful living in current situation. Your answers are very valuable and helpful to all of us for creating mindfulness and sustainable happiness among the situation of confusion for today. And particularly, how to manage the stress and the suffering in daily life. Your advice are very beneficial, not only for oneself, but also for our society throughout the world. Thank you very much indeed for your loving kindness, the most venerable.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Yes.
Yes, so I have to leave now because it's Suposita today and we have the Patimokkha recitation. So I'll leave you and wish you all the best for the rest of your meeting.
สาธุค่ะ นมัสการเจ้าค่ะ Next, we are pleased to welcome Mr. Gabor Fazekas, the president of Hungarian Association of Mindfulness and Contemplative Practice-based application from Hungary. So I would like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce the biography of our special guest today. Gabor has been teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for cancer patients and their family members in the National Institute of Oncology for more than 10 years. Since 2014, he is the organizer of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy teacher training in the Budapest, led and taught by senior teacher trainers of the Oxford Mindfulness Center. Beside the formal mindfulness courses and trainings, he organizes the weekly Life and Mind events and offers his courses for cancer patients and their relatives for prisoners for free. He is a founding member and the president of the Hungarian Mindfulness and Contemplative Association. In 2019, he was invited to be a guest speaker and the co-host and also co-organizer of the World Mindfulness Forum in the United Nations Center in Bangkok in collaboration with MCU. And today he will be giving a speech on possibilities and challenges in the field of mindfulness-based application. After that, he will lead a small meditation session, which is trauma-sensitive mindfulness. We are going to hold our question to the end. And with that, I ask all of you to give your full attention to Mr. Gabor Fazekas and help me in welcoming him into the seminar. Mr. Gabor Fazekas, please.
Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, thank you so much. And my presentation will be a little bit different. I brought some charts with me and I would like to share them so each participant can see the charts on the screen. I very hope that the share screen function works. Okay. Yeah. So,
okay. Yes, we can
do you see the chart?
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay. So, thank you for the invitation. This is a lotus for you, and the Thai Y, of course. And I would like to express my gratitude for my teachers I practiced with and learned from. Willigis Jäger is a Benedictine priest and Zen master. He just passed a year ago. And Thich Nhat Hanh and Doris Searles, she was my personal teacher. I started my koan studies with her. And Venerable Dr. Kamai Dhammasami. And I have a personal issue which what I would like to share with you. My father just passed a few weeks ago, and the funeral ceremony was 1 week ago. So I decided to dedicate this presentation to the memory of my father. And as you kindly mentioned, the main title of my presentation is Possibilities and Challenges in the Field of Mindfulness-Based Applications. And within this very broad topic, I would like to focus on the various effects of meditation, and especially on trauma-sensitive mindfulness. And we will see if we will have time for practice. I think I have lots of charts, and I very hope that we can finish with them in time. Okay. So this is the planned content of my presentation. First, I would like to compare, just in very briefly, traditional mindfulness and mindfulness-based applications based on the Satipatthana Sutta. Then I would like to give a simple description or introduction on mindfulness-based applications. And we will go on to the question of ethics, because the Buddhist path, yoga, or Christian path, they all deal with moral issues, and we'll see what is the situation regarding mindfulness-based applications. Then I would like to go on to tell about the various effects of contemplative practice, meditation. I would like to describe a meditation safety toolbox, which is for safe meditation, because practice of meditation can be beneficial in a lot of different ways, but it can be also harmful. So, and in the final section, the final part, I would like to call or bring attention to trauma and mindfulness, and how can we practice mindfulness in a trauma-sensitive way. Okay, and this is the beginning of the Satipatthana Sutta, which tells about the purpose of mindfulness practice, and I used different translations from different teachers. For example, Thich Nhat Hanh, well-known Vietnamese Zen teacher, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, and I don't know who else. And so that's why you can see different phrases for the Pali, different translations for the Pali phrases. And so what is the purpose? This is the only way, or direct path, or a most wonderful way, O bhikkhus, for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction or disappearance of suffering and grief, pain and distress, for reaching the right path, for the attainment of Nibbana, namely the four arisings, or the four establishing foundations, or the four foundations of mindfulness. And this is, you can see mindfulness-based stress reduction, or Mbsr, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, or MBCT. These are the two most well-known mindfulness-based applications. And the first one, Mbsr, deals with stress and chronic pain. As we could read in the sutta, the traditional purpose of mindfulness practices for the disappearance of pain and distress. So it is also about stress reduction. Sometimes the word dukkha, oops, what happened? Sometimes the word dukkha is also translated as stress in English text. And MBCT, or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, in the bottom part of the slide, is about the main goal is avoiding relapse into depression. And we could read in the sutta for mindfulness practices for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. So we can say that mindfulness-based applications and traditional mindfulness practice share common purpose. You can see the first circle is the domain of science. The second circle is the domain of contemplative traditions. And these two domains does not meet so frequently, but there is an overlap between these two domains. I see it's a very promising process nowadays. We can learn from scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom at the same time, and new practices, new methods are worked out. And for example, mindfulness-based applications or compassion trainings. And I would put mindfulness-based applications or compassion trainings into this area, into the overlap. So these applications use the knowledge from the scientific knowledge, and they use the traditional wisdom of contemplative traditions as well. And it's not a complete chart, of course. I just put some well-known teachers and one scientist onto this chart, trying to describe, trying to tell you about the roots of mindfulness-based applications. Mbsr was developed by John Kabat-Zinn, an American scientist, and he practiced in the Zen lineage of Sung San, a Korean Zen master. And he also practiced Vipassana or insight meditation with some American teachers. You can see in the left bottom, Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, and Jack Cornfield. They founded the insight meditation in Barre, Massachusetts. And during a retreat, John Kabat-Zinn had a vision that it is possible to combine traditional wisdom and scientific knowledge, and it could help the world. It could help people to work with stress, to work with suffering in many different ways. And you can see Mahasi Sayadaw, Goenka, the pictures of Mahasi Sayadaw and Goenka in the left part of the chart. Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, and Jeff Cornfield, they practice with Asian teachers, and I put only a few of them into the chart. And only one scientist, Hans Sayer. Perhaps some of you know that he is Hungarian. In Hungarian, his name is Seje János, and he worked out the theory of stress. And he was nominated to the Nobel Prize, as I remember, 17 times. He never finally get it, but I think as far as I know, he was the person who was nominated most times to the Nobel Prize. And he told that it's not stress that kills us, it is our reaction to it. And adopting the right attitude can convert a negative stress into a positive one. We will, on a next slide, I will talk about Mbsr and the mechanism of stress later in detail. And this slide is about MBCT, the other most well-known mindfulness-based application. As Mbsr uses mindfulness practices and the stress theory, the same way or similar way, MBCT uses mindfulness practices and cognitive behavioral therapy exercises. You can see on the left side, the right side, Aaron Beck. He's a scientist. He's the father of cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay. Go back. And this is a chart summarizing how Mbsr works with stress. On the right side, you can see the mindful response, and on the left side, you can see the stress reaction. And let me tell you about the stress reaction side first. If we get into a stressful situation, or body would like to somehow deal with the threat. We would like to fight or run away, escape from the threat. And in order to have enough energy for the fight and flight response, the body produces so-called stress hormones, which gets into the blood flow, and it results that we get into the state of acute hyperarousal. Arousal means the general activation level of the body and mind. So the blood pressure will increase, pulse rate will increase, and if we cannot run away or cannot fight, so we inhibit the stress reaction, we can get into the state of chronic hyperarousal. It means that it will result in higher blood pressure, sleep disorder, chronic pain, and anxiety symptoms. And if we would like to handle, if we would like to get rid of these symptoms, and we're not wise enough to make a good decision, or mind is confused, then we may choose self-destructing behaviors like addictions, use of alcohol, cigarette, drugs, and so on, or hyperactivity, or overwork. And finally, it may lead to a breakdown. So the resources of our body and mind will decrease, and we might get into a state of depression, or it can be it can lead to different diseases. At least chronic stress is a risk factor of a lot of diseases, illnesses like heart attack or cancer. And let's see the right side of the chart. the mindful response. If we practice mindfulness, we can be aware of the tension. We can be aware of faster breathing, and we can be aware of the full context of the situation. And through mindfulness, we can make better choices. This is the vital point of mindfulness practice, that we can choose emotion-focused strategies or problem-focused strategies, and it will result in quicker recovery of mental equilibrium and homeostasis, and quicker we can get into a calmer and balanced state of mind with mindfulness practice. And let's see the question of ethics. I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, traditions offer complex, comprehensive teachings, including ethics. Let's see the Buddhist path. In Buddhism, we have the free trainings. Perhaps you know it much better than me. In Theravada traditions, we have the Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the free trainings, and even the Noble Eightfold Path can be divided into 3 parts regarding the free trainings: right speech, right action, right livelihood. Makes the virtual part of the Noble Eightfold Path. The mind training, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration makes together the mind training part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Panya, regarding Panya or wisdom, right view and right thought. And for laymen, if you go to a Buddhist retreat, we recite together the 5 precepts. In very brief, it is about no killing or ahimsa, no stealing, no sex, brahmacharya, no lying, no intoxicants, no drugs or no alcohols. And we can see that a similar structure, if we look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it is a well-known yogic, traditional yogic text. It is also an eightfold path, and it starts with yama. Yama is the ethical base of the yogic practice. You can read it in the bottom part of the chart. It is written with very small letters, so I can read it for you. Very similar to the 5 precepts. So the first one is non-violence, ahimsa, truthfulness, non-stealing, brahmacharya, and non-greed. And perhaps you are not surprised that Christianity and Judaism, there is the 10 Commandments, and the second part of the 10 Commandments deal with quite similar commandments, which are quite similar to the 5 precepts or the 5 yamas we saw in the previous chart. So the commandments: you shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. These are 3 well-known traditions. Two of them are world religions, Buddhism or Christianity, or Judaism, then free world religions. But as we know, mindfulness-based applications are not religious programs, and but they are meant to help people with these applications meant to help people who suffers from stress, depression, and other difficulties. And John Kabat-Zinn, in his article, John Kabat-Zinn was the founder of Mbsr, developer of Mbsr, mindfulness-based stress reduction. In his article, the title of the article is Some Reflections on the Origins of Mbsr, Skill it can result in lower blood pressure, and you can sleep better if you practice, or your immune response gets better by practicing. You can perform better as well. Your attention skill may improve, your memory, learning may improve, and you can make better decisions. And your well-being, the level of quality of life, and so on. But what about the negative or adverse effects of meditation? As we could see, there are already thousands of publications, but they focus mainly on the positive effects of meditation, and only a few studies dealt with the negative effects. And I decided to bring to tell you about these studies in brief. First, Bayer et al. Published a paper in 2019, and they found that previously only a few studies were focused on the negative effects of meditation. And in these studies, in their study, they collected some of the symptoms, serious symptoms, for example, psychosis, mania, and depression. Sometimes it goes together, like sometimes people have mania, and other times the depressive symptoms. Depersonalization and derealization and traumatic memories. Sorry. And this chart is about three other studies. The first one made by Otis, it's more than 30 years old now, but it was a big study. As you can see, 574 participants took part in this study, and they were transcendental meditation practitioners, TM. TM was quite popular, and still it is still popular in the States and in Western countries. And the study found that anxiety, depression, and confusion symptoms arose amongst transcendental meditation practitioners. And the second one is the study of Shapiro. It was a qualitative study. Shapiro made with a group of Vipassana practitioners, 27 meditators, Vipassana practitioners took part in this qualitative research, in this survey, and they reported about alienation, depression, and disorientation as the negative symptoms during or after the meditation practice. And the first study was made by Sebola and his colleagues in 2017. It was an internet survey. 342 participants filled in the questionnaire, and they reported about anxiety, pain, mood disorder during or after meditation practice. And let's see how frequent, how often these negative symptoms may occur during or after meditation practice. First, one of the findings, which is quite logical, in my opinion, that those people who had more psychological problems before their meditation practice, they had more symptoms during the practice or after. And Otis found that between 5 and 15% of the participants reported negative symptoms. Shapiro, in her study, found that she made this study with Vipassana practitioners, and they reported more positive emotions than negative emotions, but 63% of them tell about negative emotions during the practice. And it resulted in that 7% of this group of people stopped meditation because the negative effects were so strong that they could not go on with the meditation practice. And the third study found, it was made by Cebola, as I mentioned before, that 25% of the participants reported unwanted effects, and 5% of them needed professional help, a psychologist or psychotherapist, in order to regain balance, regain their mental health. And 1% stopped meditating. And the negative effects of meditation is something which we need to be aware if we teach meditation. And that's why the Sangha, the community of mindfulness teachers, turned the attention how can we teach in a safe way? How can participants practice in a way that they can avoid the negative effects of meditation? And Willoughby Britton and Gerald Lindau, two American researcher and scientists, put together a meditation safety toolbox, and they gave workshops on this topic. You can see the picture of Jared on the left side, and the picture of Willoughby Britton on the right side. Okay. Oops. And they made a very detailed study. We don't have time to deal with it in details. The title of the study is, you can find perhaps on the internet, the varieties of contemplative experience, a mixed method study of meditation-related challenges in Western Buddhists. So they focused on the negative effects of meditation, and they found 59 meditation-related experience, and they divided them into 7 domains: cognitive, perceptual, affective, somatic, cognitive, sense of self, and the social domain, the different symptoms. And they put together a meditation safety toolbox. The first part of this toolbox is the guidelines. MBSR teachers or MBCT teachers have to keep themselves to these guidelines, and this is the base of our work. How should we teach meditation? How should we practice? And how should we keep on develop ourselves, learning from the scientific field and from the traditional knowledge as well. The second part of this toolbox is about informed consent. It means that if you open a magazine, if you read an article about mindfulness or mindfulness-based application, usually it tells about the beneficial effects. But we must be aware of the fact that the practice of mindfulness or meditation is not good for everyone. It can be harmful for people with certain conditions, and it is very important that mindfulness teachers inform the participants about the potential negative effects of meditation, and we should screen the participants if meditation, mindfulness is contraindicated for them or not. For example, if someone is suffers from acute depression or has the symptoms of psychosis or has suicidal thoughts, for example, then it's not a good idea for him or her to practice meditation. Perhaps he or she needs another kind of therapy, another kind of help. And it is important that we must monitor what is happening during the classes, what happens during the process of a mindfulness training, of mindfulness class, because it could happen that it turns out to be later in the middle of the course that someone having difficulty with the practice, and we should have an eye on the participants, how they feel, what effect practice and meditation practice and mindfulness make on them. And of course, we should know the mechanism of not only the mindfulness application. We should train ourselves in, for example, in trauma. What is the effect of trauma? And management, the sixth part of the meditation safety toolbox, is about how can we implement this knowledge into our courses, and I will tell you about it later. It is about trauma-informed care, trauma-informed mindfulness. Yeah. And I'm getting close to the final part of my presentation. This part is about trauma and mindfulness. You can see David Treleaven published a book with the title Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness Practices for Safe and Transformative Healing in 2018. It was already translated to many languages, including Hungarian. In Hungarian, the title of the book is Trauma and Mindfulness, so not the same title as in English. But before we go to the topic of trauma-sensitive mindfulness, let's see what trauma means. And I use this definition of the trauma-informed care implementation resource center. So what is trauma? Trauma is a deeply depressing or disturbing experience. It results from exposure to an incident or series of events that are emotionally disturbing or life-threatening, with lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, and the spiritual well-being. I would like to bring your attention to the 3 E's: experience, event, and effect. It could happen that we can get into a stressful, very stressful situation, but it can have different effect on different individuals, and one of us may experience trauma. Another one can deal with this event, with this experience better. So the vital point is how we experience this event. And if it has a traumatic effect on us, it means that it will have long-lasting adverse effects on our life, on our daily life. And what experiences could lead to trauma? Perhaps you know it as well. Abuse, not only sexual, but emotional, physical abuse as well. Childhood neglect, poverty, racism, or any kind of oppression or discrimination. Gender issues belong to this part as well, or any kind of violence, for example, war, terrorism, and sudden unexplained separation from a loved one, or living with a family member with mental and health disorder could lead to trauma as well. And now I stop for a minute with these two conditions, because separation from a loved one, perhaps many of us experienced during the past 1.5 years that we couldn't meet our loved ones the same way as before because of the COVID situation. And this is the personal side. This is the personal story of mine, that my parents lived in a, my mother still lives in a elder care center for people with dementia, Alzheimer, and it made a very negative effect on their health conditions, that we couldn't meet in person. And regarding my father, he could he was only in the companion of my mother, who is seriously who has a serious dementia and Alzheimer, and it finally it led to his death. So he did not die because of COVID, but because of the conditions resulted. And now let's go on to trauma in more general. The problem is that if you have a traumatic experience, then you re-experience it again and again in the form of flashbacks. It means that that you feel that you are in the same situation, the same place where the trauma happened, and you relive this experience. Or it could happen in your during sleeping, that you have nightmares or bad dreams, or during the your daily life, you might have intrusive memories of the traumatic events. Another symptom of the post-traumatic stress disorder is avoidance, that you tend to avoid places which is similar to the place of the traumatic event, or you tend to avoid activities, people that reminds you of trauma, and the level of your level of reactivity will increase. Arousal, as I mentioned is the activation level of the body and mind, will increase as a result of the trauma. So you might have hypervigilance or angry outbursts, or you might have trouble in concentrating, trouble in sleeping, or you might turn towards self-destructive behavior, like the use of alcohol and drugs. And PTSD might have a deteriorating effect on your feelings and your mood. You might feel hopeless frequently. You might lose your interest in the things you liked to do before. You might feel numb, overwhelmed by fear, sadness, guilt, or shame, and so on. In order to heal and transform trauma, we need to integrate trauma-related information and knowledge into our programs, into our organizations, into our systems. And this is the 4R of trauma-informed care. It is, you can find it on the website of the Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration of the United States. The 4R is about trauma-informed care, is about realizing the widespread impact of trauma and understanding of the potential path to recovery. Trauma-informed care recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma, and it responds by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into practices and resists or avoids re-traumatization. As mindfulness teachers or meditation teachers, we should integrate trauma-related knowledge into our practices in order to provide a safe environment to the participants of our courses. Because mindfulness practice is like a double-edged sword. This is a picture, a symbol taken from David Treleaven's book, the Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness, because mindfulness can help integrate trauma, but it can also lead to re-traumatization. And if we teach, if we practice in a trauma-sensitive way, we can ease and release suffering. And of course, the main aim is to avoid re-traumatization. And let's see the 5 principles of trauma-sensitive mindfulness. The first one is about the window of tolerance. I will tell you about it in detail in the forthcoming charts. The second principle is focus on stabilization and safety. The third principle is keeping the body and mind, working with dissociation. The fourth principle is practice in relationship, because we can heal through safe environment, safe relationships. And the fifth one is understanding the social context, working effectively with difference, across differences. And the window of tolerance was first used, this phrase was first used by Daniel Siegel, well-known American psychologist. And it means that when you are in your window of tolerance, you feel like you can deal with your experience, with whatever happens in your life. You might feel stress or pressure, but it does not have a very negative effect on you. So this is the ideal place to be. but trauma can affect your window of tolerance. And I would like to call your attention in the to the upper part of the chart and the bottom part of the chart. We can fall out of the window of tolerance. We can get into the state of hyperarousal. Arousal means the activation level of the body and mind. So when we are in the state of hyperarousal, we might feel anxious or angry, out of control, overwhelmed. Our body wants to fight or escape. You can see the pictogram of a volcano in the right side. And it is something you cannot control. Reactions just take over. And our body and mind can react in completely the opposite way. We can, if we fell out of the window of tolerance, we can get into the state of hypoarousal, which means that we get numb, frozen, our body shut down. I chose the pictogram of an iceberg. You can see it in the bottom of the right side. And it is the same. Reactions just take over. You cannot control it. It's not something you choose. You just get frozen. Okay. And David Treleaven, the author of Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness, offers the use of the arousal scale. It is a scale, it is a very simple method that participants can rate their experience, how they feel during or after the meditation using this scale. The bottom of the scale is the state of hypoarousal. The top of the scale, 9 or 10, is the state of hyperarousal. And in the middle of the scale is the window of tolerance. The green section, we can call the green section the safety zone. Let's say the safety zone. And the yellow sections are we can call it the challenge zone. We can still deal with the threat, but it becomes difficult. And it is vital that participants learn to maintain self-regulation, not to lose control, so they can make trauma-sensitive decisions during practice, during meditation, and not only in meditation, not only during meditation, but also in their daily life. But in order to use the scale, you should know well the symptoms or signs of hyperarousal and hypoarousal. You can see the symptoms on the right side of the chart. If you get into the state of hyperarousal, you may get into angry, you may get angry outbursts. You may get overwhelmed by fear, anxiety, panic. Your muscles get tight, or you are in a state of hypervigilance, which means that you look out for danger all the time. You cannot relax because you think that something threatening around you. the state of in the state of hyperarousal, you might have the symptoms of depression, numbness, emptiness, flaccid body, blank stare. You are not able to speak, and you might get into the state of dissociation. I will tell you about it later. And how can we help participants to keep self-regulation, to stay in the safe zone, in the window of tolerance? We may encourage them to open their eyes during meditation if they have intrusive memories, because a longer meditation practice might turn into a struggle with intrusive pictures and memories of the traumatic event. So if you close your eyes and see the environment around you, you can realize that you are not in the traumatic situation, and it can help you avoid to fall into an extreme reaction. We learn together with the participants to change focus from the triggers of traumatic reactions, and we as trauma-sensitive teachers, we give permission to the participants to stop meditation if it is too difficult for them anytime, and it is their decision. So they don't have to ask for it, but they can decide in any moment to stop the meditation and do something else if they feel it is better for them. And usually, if we practice mindfulness, breath is the first meditation object, or one of the most common object of meditation. But breath, focusing on the breath could be very difficult, especially when someone has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, because the breath can be very can be very fast, or very different than from the normal breathing. If you relieve a traumatic memory, and other anchors such like the feet on the ground, or the feeling of the hands in your lap, or sounds around you can help you better to get into a state of balance, inner peace, than the breath, which changes, which is affected by, which might be affected by a traumatic memory very easily. So if you keep these hints or instructions in mind, you can help your participants to stay within the window of tolerance. And it is about the principle free dissociation. In mindfulness-based application, we practice body scan. We focus on the bodily sensations for a longer period of time, but focusing too long on bodily sensation may result in dissociation. for people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. Dissociation means cutting away from one's physical and emotional experience. It is like when someone looks like she's not here, but somehow locked in an inner world, staring into the air, but not in connection with the environment around him or her. And a trauma-sensitive approach helps to avoid overwhelm, help to avoid dissociation. We can insert breaks, more breaks into the practice, or lead shorter practices, or we can encourage participants to change posture anytime they feel like. They can, as I mentioned, they can stop meditation, and movement practices can be helpful when someone is suffering from traumatic memories. And as teachers, we should, as I mentioned, we should have an eye on the participants, watch signs for dissociations, which I mentioned you. If someone looks like she lost connection with the group, with the environment, we can encourage to use the 5 senses, open the eyes, and what is around him or her, what sounds can be heard, what smells can be felt, and so on, what bodily sensations they have, and it might help them to return to the here and now. And it is important to provide a safe environment for the participant, respect physical boundaries, ask for permission before touch anyone. The exit should be easily accessible. The place, it's better if it is well lighted, so not dark, and it's better not to use scents or odors. Okay. Yeah, getting closer to the end of my presentation, and I think it is extremely or especially important, safety, because trauma survivors lose their belief, lose their the world is not a safe place for them anymore after a traumatic event, and they cannot feel safe alone if they're left alone, if they feel isolated with their trauma. And safe relationships, the support of family members, friends, can give back some sense of safety for them. And relationships or a support group or a kind presence of a teacher may provide possibility for sharing for them. And it is the base for integrating this traumatic experience, and it is the base for transformation and healing, finally. And self-compassion practices, also very important, or love towards self and support from others. These can provide an antidote against overwhelming feelings of shame and guilt. So we can here through support and safe relationship. Oops, it was much longer. Apologies, I didn't see the watch, and I very hope it was useful for you. And once again, apologies for the time.
Okay, thank you so much. Don't worry about that. Yes, and on behalf of all participants today, I would like to express my deepest condolence to you and your family first. And we are very grateful that for your kindness in making time for this session today. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabor Fazekas, the President of Hungarian Association of Mindfulness and Contemplative Practice-Based Application from Hungary. Next, may I invite Dr. Sakchai Sakapusha, former Director of International Law Subdivisions, Legal Affairs, Bureau, Custom Department, and the current lecturer at the International Buddhist Study College of MCU, to give a thank you speech to Mr. Gabor Fazekas, please.
On behalf of International Buddhist Studies College, Chulalongkorn Ratchavidyalaya University, and all participants, I would like to pay my respect and gratitude to Mr. Gabor Fazekas, President of Hungarian Association of Mindfulness and Contemplative Practice-Based Application, Hungary, for your speech on possibilities and challenges in the field of mindfulness-based applications. Your suggestion today will contribute to the most fruitful result to humanity for establishing mindfulness, especially related to physical health, serious symptoms, for example. Thank you so much indeed for your kindness, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you. And I'm sorry again for the time. And I wish you a good conversation and practice for the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your insightful speech today. Yes, and next, may I respectfully invite Most Venerable Pramaha Bunchoi Sirintaro, a former Vice Rector of MCU Chiang Mai campus, for a brainstorming session to conclude the lesson learned by the audiences and students. In this session, we are looking forward to hearing you out on how mindfulness can bring sustainable world peace and how we can use mindfulness to promote peace in a practical way. So please, Venerable.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Natnapang. And good afternoon. Actually, it is mostly evening now. Most Venerable who are still here in the Zoom, and brother, sister, and all participants. On this session of on this afternoon on mindfulness for sustainable world peace. This session is now. We are going to is a session of sharing experience, I mean the opinions, experience, and the lesson learned by the audience and the student who are now participating in this session. I'm Pramaha Bunchoi Dujai, the former lecturer of Vice Rector of MCU Chiang Mai campus, Chiang Mai, Thailand. I was a member of Vice Chair of Urano Peace Prize, Japan for 3 terms of 6 years. I have been working with the Maidon University to empower Buddhist network in 3 southern border provinces in Thailand. Just in brief, after gaining extensive knowledge, experience from highly qualified scholars with the topic of mindfulness on Theravada tradition from text perspective to enhance a peaceful society and then sustaining happiness through mindful living in current situation, which is the session of the question and answer. And lastly, just finished is the possibilities in and challenges in the field of mindfulness-based application by Mr. Gabor, which is very insightful and enlightened for all of us. It is now time for all participants to share opinion, lesson learned of the importance of mindfulness in creating inner peace and outer peace, so as other participants in this room can have more idea and experience to apply or integrate on their program of peace building work. Since we have now just over time already, I will try my best, to facilitate this session, to have more idea practically on the peace building, we can say that, or for mindfulness for sustainable world peace. So with this, we still have sometimes. That means sometimes mean I'm not sure for how long, but I will try to facilitate for some of us in this room, to share their experience. I think we can have maybe around 5 minutes each to share the experience, so that we can, allow others to get the same opportunity of sharing. I would like to request those who are to share the idea, concept, and lesson learned to introduce themselves, yourself, your work, and from where you are, before sharing your experience. From now, I have seen the hand, rising, but for equal opportunity of gender balance, I would like first to give the first sharing to Venerable Bhikkhuni Kamala, who is working in southern part of Thailand. She is living in Songkhla province, working on palliative care there. And of course, she is still a PhD candidate of peace study of MCU. I'm not sure whether Venerable Bhikkhuni Thammagamala is still in the room. Thammagamala, please. No. Okay. Now I'm coming back to our participants who raise your hand. Venerable, I've seen Venerable William. Please.
Namaskaran, Ajahn.
Yes.
I'm very happy to meet you. So I'm from Australia. My name is Pra William Kitameto, and I've been living in a small temple in Thailand and practicing mindfulness meditation and general monk practice for about 5 or 6 years all up. And what is something I've always thought about is, Buddhist practice is not for everyone. And how does that work? How does that fit in the world? And hearing from Gabor about people who have suffered trauma, extreme trauma. I think from my experience in a temple, someone with extreme trauma can come and stay at a temple, right? And just live at the temple and just help. And they don't need to meditate. They don't need to practice anything. They can just join the temple community, right? And it gives them a chance to slowly come down, slowly change the level of trauma and stress. And then over time, they may be ready to sit and meditate or take on the satipatthana or whatever the case may be. So I was just thinking it's a shame that in other countries throughout Europe, they may not have this opportunity to just simply go to a temple and just take some time out, right? And so I'm just wondering, perhaps sometime in the future, this would be more available to people, for example, in Hungary, where if there's someone with extreme trauma, they can simply just go to take refuge in a temple area for starters. Firstly, just take refuge there and maybe help and just I think this technique is a way to also manage trauma, extreme trauma, right? Because I think we have problems if someone goes to a Vipassana retreat, for example, goes to a 15-day Vipassana retreat, and they're not fully aware of what kind of subconscious habits and reactions they've got going on, right? And it can be a shock to suddenly have mindfulness, so you're suddenly more aware of what's going on with your mind. It's like you're getting to know yourself for the first time. And that can be stressful.
Okay.
and traumatic anyway, right? Because you're saying, I'm not perfect, I have some very unwholesome habits, and so that can be kind of traumatic when you first, or shocking when you first see this for yourself. Right. So in a way, it's also a part of the pathway. You're going to need to accept these parts of your habits, the way you behave, which are very unwholesome and negative, and all of this, And to my mind, if we practice metta bhavana, then we can help to alleviate that shock or shame of, I'm not perfect, I'm suddenly realize I'm speaking very rudely to people, and so these are the kinds of things that have come up in my mind from listening to Gabor. Yeah, so I hope that's of interest.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your sharing. It's very interesting, of bringing this wisdom to the West. Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, this is really very important, and we need more people from the West, to get the idea and doing some work like what Gabor have done in Hungary, and having very effective work in Hungary. Thank you, William, for your sharing. Mm-hmm. And now I'm coming to the side of women, which is also the Bhikkhuni in Theravada Buddhism in southern part of Thailand. She's doing the work in southern part and doing work like palliative care in southern Thailand. and also in the south, in the most 3 provinces in southern border of Thailand. So please, can you share some idea of connecting mindfulness, which we have to practice for inner peace and also working for the outer peace toward the peace in southern part of Thailand, that Venerable Dhammakamala Bhikkhuni Dhammakamala, please. And if you're
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
My name is Dhammakamala Bhikkhuni. I would like to pay my respect to all teachers and all the everyone in this room. I came from the Songkla province, but now we work together with the member of the Very Peace Together group by Mahidol University, and we work at the area is 3 southern border province and visit the elderly, all the religions, and the people who get the suffering from the hurt, from the affected by violence events in the past and right now. What we're doing with them, usually my picture like this. That the people, another religion, sometimes they don't understand. When we walk into that land, that dim land, they look at us like a strange people. But the one thing what I'm thinking in my mind, I think this is the peace is our legacy, and we must take it to them heart. That it is our responsibility of the Buddhists, and we try to do like asking them, how are you, and smiling the beginning when we meeting them. We try to give them the new mindset, and we try to talk with them originally what we doing, the really life, and we ask them about the basic life from them too, for make understand each other, like what you can doing, what you cannot doing, and I tell them what I can doing and what you can doing with me, like this. The first thing when we get the talking with them, what the feedback, they very smiling and they really feel like comfortable with me, and they sitting down next to me, and they love to talking, love to tell me what happened, what's going on, and that southern of Thailand, what they wanted, what they needed, what they hope the future will happen with them. That's like we have the question and we answer together. And we try to tell them, whatever was going on, the one thing I think you have to believe your God. When you believe your God, and I believe that, you feel passing everything, whatever happened. Me too. Like me, I have to make my fullness in my life too every day. You too, you have to do it to make your mindfulness is very strong. And you can pass everything. You can pass everything. Like when I come to you, please take my loving kindness to your heart and your soul. Me too. I will take come to me too. Like this.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It is, very good to hear that not only for palliative care, for those who are, in sick, take caring them in your temple.
Yeah.
And you are talking about working with the people with Muslim in the South.
Yes.
And walking to their place.
Yes.
Expressing our loving kindness.
Yes.
And sit together and then share the experience, or actually sharing our suffering. We for those who are affected by the conflict and violence in southern part of Thailand, they are very much suffering. So with that, bringing the smiling face, from Bhikkhuni tradition of Thailand to the place, and bringing more friends, and so that I think it is the sign of peace in southern part of Thailand, that working by the Bhikkhuni group in Songkhla province. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammakamala. And I have seen two more hands in this room. One is Yuan. I'm reading the your name from the screen. So please, Yuan, could you please share your experience? Yeah.
Thank you, Pramaha.
Yeah.
I would say that, for there to be sustainable peace, it depends on wisdom, and it starts with wisdom of the self. I've recently conducted, not by choice, because my teacher said, you do it. And I was not ready to do it, but he mentored me from behind. I spent 7 years full time in practicing Mahasi meditation in Myanmar, in the monasteries, and following the life. But I was still not ready. And I didn't want to listen to other people's suffering. Sorry. So, but he said, you have to do it. So I conduct Vipassana, I call it insight meditation, throughout the world using video. And most recently with the Middle East-led group of Arabs and some Christians, also Australia, South Africa. And what I find in every one of those sessions, they even if it's 20 to half an hour of practice, their memories surface. They suffer from PTSD. They suffer from hate and vengeance. And I've got an Arab who alternate between rage and depression because he was cheated. Yes, and he was cheated by his. This is not because of the war, but because he was cheated by his by a partner, business partner, for 20 over years. Completely cheated. So you cannot leave them like that, because when they meditate, all the memories come out. I have somebody from Arizona who suffered from child sexual abuse. All these are very real cases. I've got somebody from South Africa whose church community center was destroyed in the recent riot. So actually, it was a question for Dr. Gabo. What is the role of the teacher in a meditation, session? Because in my traditional Vipassana practice, the role of the teacher is quite important, skillful teacher. Okay. Secondly, what place does, because I wasn't sure, what place does reporting have? Because reporting is very, very important. During one of those times when the English-speaking Sero or teacher, he left to go somewhere else. There was no reporting. And a Japanese nun who has been there for 1.5 years, for some reason, because we are dealing with the mind, it's not for even an ordinary person. She's a Japanese nun. She's been there for 1.5 years. She tried to commit suicide 3 times. You know, after a few months of silence, living with her own silence. So my question is, you know, are we playing with mindfulness, or are we guiding them? And also the other question I have is, there's a lot of emphasis on mindfulness. To me, mindfulness is a process. In Buddhist Vipassana, you guide the meditators to wisdom. That is the ultimate goal. And so when I do that, my duty, I feel, is that I help them solve their problem. In the case of that, you know, the particular, I help them to solve their problem because I have a bit of training as a coach. So then they guide them towards wisdom, because that's the goal. Mindfulness is the process. So I was just wondering, you know, I mean, I had a very interesting exposure to Western Buddhism. So I wanted to know, what role does it have, you know, the reporting, how does a skillful teacher in those retreats, you know, help the meditator? Because you can't leave the meditator opening their eyes and just dealing with it. It's very real. The memories that surface, if they meditate very clearly, it's real. You can't leave them, you know, lying on the floor. So this is the question I ask, because it's very much related to inner peace, and from inner peace to world peace, because you can't underestimate. So the Arabs were so grateful when I work with them on meditation. And I never say that my meditation is secular. I never deny Buddha, because this is from the Buddha. So about what I do, and they do have an inkling, but we don't talk about it. But there are times when, you know, I ask them to incorporate their own spiritual and religious tradition, and they appreciate that. Because you then make it spiritual. You don't make it secular. That's all I want to say. So I still want to hear.
Thank you very much. And I've seen the very important things that you share with us, especially the role of the meditation teachers, you know, who is to take care of the student under the guidance, which is really very important to guide them into the right way. And of course, mindfulness is just a process to gain wisdom. That is very, very important, you know, which I think people in this room, you know, can get that and maybe apply in their work in the future. I have more more hand raising here. Venerable Pranab Barua, you are with us. Please, Venerable. Yeah. Unmute your hand. Yeah. Okay, now you are.
And take my veneration, Venerable. My name is Pranab Barua. I am from Bangladesh. I have been working with NGO since 3 years for human rights. So with this opportunity, I am privileged to join with the community, the conflict solving in the community. Also, there are many people. There are different religious people stay in the district of Chiang Rai. So when I joined to conflict in the community, so the Buddhist people asked me that you are the Buddhist monk. You need to practice in your temple. Why did you come here to solve our problem? Then I said, I'm a Buddhist monk. Yes, I practice the teaching of the Buddha. So there is, so I practice the Brahma Vihara. So the Brahma Vihara, loving kindness, compassion, sympathy to others, and equanimity. So when I practice myself, and when I cultivate, I get the positive energy, positive attitude. So through this attitude, so I share to others, and I can solve the problem among the communities. So they say to me, so okay, so what kinds of the practice you follow you can solve our problem? So I can say so I came to solve the problem is in that situation is the religious conflict. So there was the Buddhist community as well as Christian community. So they asked that, so how can we solve the problem? I said, the Buddha said, you need to promote the interreligious faith. You need to respect to our religion, Buddhist religion as well as the other religion also. And we also need to promote the human value of others. So you cannot think then my religion is the best and my religion is the truth. So other religion is not the truth, is lower than us. So in this context, yes. So among the between the two groups, they became always ready to fight each other. Okay. Yeah. So fortunately, we was able to solve the problem between two communities. And also, one Buddhist people asked me, so why did you go to join the other religious ceremony? So I said, at first I said you that I need to respect other human value, other religious people, they are teaching. So yeah, so I hope that through dialogue of interreligious dialogue, we can solve the conflict of religious problem in our community.
Okay, with loving kindness and compassion, yes, to all, and respect to human values, as you said. Thank you very much, Venerable Pranab Barua. And I have seen no hand at this moment. And I think as Venerable Pranab Barua had said, I think it is also one very important part of working to build the sustainable world peace, that is interreligious dialogue. If we look at the texts, the Buddhist text, we can find many times the Buddha, passing the place where other scholar, other teacher and scholar sit and share their idea, and then the Buddha just did not pass by, without recognizing them. But the Buddha then always enter into the place where the discussion is going on, and then he also share his idea. The Buddhist idea to the people. That means we are exchanging the idea, and the Buddha exchanging the Buddhist idea to others for mutual understanding. This is a very important example that Buddha have, we can say that have done that for an example, as an example for our Buddhist brother and sister and Buddhist community, to take into consideration, and using that as a tool, to promote world peace and sustainable world peace. Thank you very much. I just, have seen, wow, one minute. We have 2 more hands, and I have only, I think if we are going to finish by 5 p.m., then we need to share 2 persons here, Venerable Lablu Barua and Sunadar Herring, just for 2 people. And it is possible for you to share each for 3 minutes, please. Start with Venerable Lablu Barua, please. No? Okay. So
thank you so much, Achan.
Okay. Just for 3 minutes.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Yes,
just only 2 minutes maybe.
Okay.
So thank you so much again to give me the floor. I just refers to the World's International Peace Day today. So I pray for everyone's be peace and be free from all suffer and everything. And especially thanks to our director of IBSC Pramahansa and our university MCU for arrange these wonderful occasions today to arrange for this, and who are working for everyone's to thanks. And my question actually, as I know that, and as I am working in Bangladesh, also in Europe, one group, I saw that the peace is not only come from the religious practice. It is come from also as the Maslow theory. We must have to fulfill the 5 basic elements: our shelter, education, physical, mental, and job satisfactions. Lot of things related with the Islam as the Maslow theory of the our human beings. So when fulfilled, then we can get the sustainable peace. Without the spiritual, it's not spiritual practice. It's not be happen, or it's not be come to the peace. Because if we have a poorness, if we don't have a proper education, or if we don't have a hunger, how do we establish peace? So my observation as a Theravada country, most of the Theravada country, we don't have a good financial institute or institution or organization as like others religious have, which is like in Islamic country, they have the Islamic bank, they have a Islamic OIS foundations, and they build the globally, they propagate their religious and also financially they supports to their followers. So as you are one of the director of IBSC and also the former of the in Chiang Mai, I request all of the who are the stockholder in here, they have any plans for establishing these kinds of things to help all the who are the come from the lower education, lower peoples, like I said, lower economy country peoples. And what is your opinion and what is your thinking? Because sometimes I feel as some people in Thailand, when we say that we are from Bangladesh or we are from Myanmar or we are from the Sri Lanka, they discriminate. Sometimes some people is the religiously the someone proud, but economically they are the discriminate us.
Okay, I understand that. Wonderful. Thanks. Okay.
That's your observation.
Okay. Thank you, Venerable. And I have no answer at all. And it is to pass to IBSC, to think about it and to have some program, on your suggestion. And you remind me on the missionary of Christian religion, of Christianity. They are coming by three purposes. One is the church. The second one is the hospital. And the third is education. Yes. This is, wherever they go, they will have these 3.
Yes.
And then we can get that experience and think about it, and I just passed this to Dr. Paramahansa Mahaso and Professor, to think, and we can have, I think we can have also a forum to share on this and to think for our next generation to come. No? And one more, Sunanda, please. And you have 3 minutes, please. Sunanda. Okay. Please unmute your mic.
Yes.
Okay, now. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. I would like to give homage and my respect to all the venerables and speakers. I would like to talk about the gratitude to mark the World Peace, International World Peace Today. So I learned this gratitudes from the Oxford professor Dr. Damasami from Myanmar, talking about how we are related to one another and how to have compassion on other people and as well as by ourselves. So I remember he mentioned about when he was in operating room. This is an example that when he was having a knee surgery, he looked up and checked the operation lamp and also the scalpels and all instruments for operations. These are made by other people. Not only by knowledge, doctor has the knowledge, but they cannot create the instruments for operations. So there are sometimes many people mention that they think that they are alone and they think that they can do everything, but actually we are all related to one another. For us to live in a house, it has to be built by someone else, materials to be made by other people. So to conclude that, if we want to have peace, we can have a compassion to others. We cannot live alone. We are not alone. Therefore, gratitude, spread the gratitude that will affect in your workplace, your education, or even at your family. That's all from me. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunanda. It's very, very interesting that we are related. We are all related. And, in this society, in peasant society, many of the children, they said that I have no father, I have no mother because they never feed me.
That's right.
The master Thich Nhat Hanh, I was attending his lecture, his talk. He just said that, raise your hand and put your hand on your forehead and feel that your mother is here and your father is here with you. So this is something which is very related. No? Okay, thank you very much. I just I have no conclusion on this particular session because the time is over. Actually, it's over from the beginning of our session. Now, 5 p.m. So I just thanks to all who share their idea in this session and those who are also, with a careful listening, and hope you getting, some experience to apply or to integrate in your work to promote sustainable world peace. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much, Most Venerable Pramaha Bunchoi Sirintaro, a former Vice Rector of MCU Chiang Mai campus, for being a facilitator for the brainstorming session today. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Sakchai Sakkabusha, former Director of International Law Subdivision, Legal Affairs Bureau, Customs Department, and the current lecturer at the International Buddhist Study College of MCU, to give a thank you speech to the Most Venerable, please.
On behalf of International Buddhist Studies College, Mahajula Rajavichalaya University, and all participants, I would like to pay my respect, my gratitude to พระครูพิพิธสุตาธร พระมหาบุญช่วยดูใจ Professor of Buddhist Studies, MCU Chiang Mai campus, for brainstorming the lesson learned from audience and students. With your expertise, you can create the inspiration to participants for taking part of brainstorming the lesson learned. These activities will enhance our knowledge and wisdom in terms of mindfulness for sustainable world peace as you want. Thank you very much indeed for your loving kindness and your contribution, the most vulnerable.
Yes, thank you so much, the most vulnerable, and thank you so much, Dr. Sakchai, for your thank you speech for the most vulnerable. Now we have come to the end of our program. It is grateful to receive the insights from distinguished Buddhist scholars today. Thank you very much, and on behalf of all professors, university lecturers, entire faculty members, staff, fellow Buddhist practitioners, and all distinguished participants, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to all distinguished Buddhist scholars today, and to Venerable Professor Dr. Paramahansa Thammahaso, the Director of International Buddhist Study College of MCU, to kindly organize and host this meaningful seminar on the International Day of Peace 2021. Thank you, the most venerable and professors. And when we think of conflict, we often think about wars and violence around the world, but there are also conflicts that we experience in our day-to-day lives. For example, friction in the workplace, hateful comments on the social media. Although these small daily conflicts may not seem like they would make a difference to the world, but they contribute to a lack of world peace. However, we can help bring a little more peace to the world by creating the sense of inner peace within ourselves with mindfulness for sustainable world peace. In today's world of global pandemic, we need a moment of mindfulness in our daily life more than ever. And all of us as a small unit to this world are actually significant. When the world is in a problem, we have the role to play. A tiny change in one place may produce a large effect in a far away location, and we can change the world simply by changing ourselves. In the same way, every individual, everyone who is breathing, talking, walking, thinking, influences this planet as well. So we can all eradicate peace, good thoughts, good vibrations, good wishes, and that is definitely makes an impact to the planet. Through meditation, we can remove the cause of violence, and as a result, we can bring peace to the world. And when we are calm and peaceful, that feeling, it emanates out of us, it radiates out of us like a bright candle. Each of us like that one candle. We are light, we're not bright by ourselves, but when we share the candle with others, we want to brighten the whole world, one person at a time. And when you have the inner peace, it spreads to the people that are close to us as well. In this way, we have the potential to spread peace, from inner peace to family peace, to community peace, to the world peace. And true peace comes from within. And we will never know real peace in the world until we discover this within ourselves. And at this point in time, may I respectfully invite Venerable Professor Dr. Paramahansa Thammahaso, the Director of International Buddhist Study College, to give a closing speech and lead the congregation to pay homage to the Triple Gems for closing International Seminar on the International Day of Peace 2021. Please, Venerable.
Most respected to most venerable Dr. Professor Dr. Vipi Sutathon, who give us a chance to join with our forum today. And I take just a long time to listen to most venerable who share his experiences with our students. or those who come to join us today. I think that is experiences that you all try to convey to people around the world. And of course, the way we try to do today is the way we try to convey our best wish to our world today as well. The thing is that we are unable to live alone. There's a main point I would like to share my experiences with you. We are unable to live alone at this moment. It's the reason why we have to love other people. It's the reason why we have to love other people. When you love them all, after that, they all will love you as well. When you take the best care of them all, after that, they all will take the best care of them all. When you smile, then they will smile with you as well. So it's the reason why today we have to come to join hands in hand and share our experiences. Because we care of each other. We care of each other. And especially at the beginning, we all listen to Most Venerable Professor Dr. Dhammasami. Because of Most Venerable Dhammasami, I have been to staying with him at Oxford for 15 years ago. I've been to study English language in Oxford. So at that time, I took time to stay with his monastery. And Most Venerable Dhammasami inspired me a lot. Why we have to learn English language? Because English language is the tool to bring Buddhism, to inspire foreigners to practice meditation fluently and more effectively. The way we learn English language is the way we bring them all to practice meditation together. I remember at that time, Most Venerable so kind of me. It's the reason why today we invite Most Venerable Dhammasami to share his experiences, because he's like a mindfulness master. Inspire many people. It's not just in Chan State University, but around the world. The second person is so important as well, because Most Venerable Chayasaro, he is a mindfulness master as well. He teaches many people in Thailand and people around the world to practice meditation. And he tried to affirm again and again why mindfulness is foundation of peace. Peace is in your mind. It's not outside your mind. So if you would like to find true peace inside your mind, the first one, you have to practice meditation, because meditation is the beginning of peace. And fortunately today, Most Venerable bring you all how can we practice meditation more effectively, and give you a chance to share his experiences for 1 hour. And the last one, Gabor. Gabor is quite well known in European country. He established meditation center in Hungary. I've been there many times when I was studying in Oxford. Especially Most Venerable Dhammasami been there as well to teach meditation in Hungary at Budapest. So not just people in Budapest or European country who would like to practice meditation, but people in Australia, New Zealand, and America as well. Been to join Mindfulness Forum in Hungary. That is moment, mindfulness is so important. But one thing I would like to remind you, mindfulness does not belong to Buddhists. The Buddha never claimed that mindfulness or meditation belong to Buddha or belong to Buddhists. The Buddha never said like that. So for those who suffer and need inspiration and motivation, especially for those who suffer, they really need mindfulness and meditation to train the mind to be happy. That's why mindfulness is so important, not only for Buddhism, but also people throughout the world who suffer. And the last session, today we invite Most Venerable Professor Dr. Sutathon. We know each other for a long time, you know. We know each other for a long time. And one month, I respect the behavior and everything in the past. One month, I respect will be Most Venerable Professor Dr. Sutathon, you know, because if you try to understand and learn from his experiences, there are many activities he have done so far, in not just in the north of Thailand, but he been to many countries to propagate peace. So today we are so lucky, Most Venerable give us a chance to share, to be moderator, and bring you all to share experiences together. Once again, I would like to thank Most Venerable very much. I would like to thank Most Venerable. I think you all get more experiences when you listen to Most Venerable Dhammasami, Most Venerable Chayasaro, and from Dr. Gabo, and the last session with the Most Venerable Sutathon as well. I do hope that you all will bring whatever you learn today to practice. Peace is not just speaking. Just speaking without action, peace is impossible. Without action, peace is impossible. So you just speak about peace many times. Peace is impossible because of this. Please bring mindfulness to practice in daily life. When you talk about practice, it's not in monastery. It's not you have to go to practice with monk. You have to go to practice on the top of the mountain. Then you will get mindfulness. It's not true. Mindfulness or Mahasatipatthana is in your mind, body all the time. You're just aware, then you will see mindfulness at that moment. So the Buddha affirmed many times, please practice, practice, and practice. The Buddha come from experiences. Because of practice mindfulness, today we will have a chance to pay respect to the Buddha. So now I would like to bring you all to pay homage to the Buddha together. After that, now we will go to practice meditation. Arang sama sambuto bhagawan buddhang bhagawantang abhivademi sawakato bhagavata dhammo dhammang namasami supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho saṅghang namah. Buddha bless you all, Buddha bless you all, Buddha bless you all. Thank you, Most Venerable Professor Dr. Sutathon ครับกล่าวอาจารย์ครับผมครับ For now is the closing ceremony. Good luck. Buddha bless you all. See you later.
So we have the evaluation.
Yes, so thank you so much, Venerable, both Venerables. Thank you all the professor, university lecturers, and fellow Buddhist practitioners, all distinguished participants for joining our seminars under the theme Mindfulness for Sustainable World Peace. And thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you gain new knowledge and insights from our distinguished Buddhist scholars during the seminar, which you can use in creating peace in your daily life. I hope the program benefits you all. And before leaving this room, we would like to take a group photo. So please turn on your cameras for taking photo together. Yes. Okay, this let our team take a picture of you all together.
Okay, we will start from first page. 1, 2, second page. 1, 2, third page. 1, 2, number 4, page number 5, 6.
หน้าแรกอีกครั้งนะท่านนะ
โอเคโอเคขออภัยครับอาจารย์โอเค
อย่าลืมพระครูพิพิธด้วยนะหน้าแรกเนี่ย
โอเคครับโอเคอาจารย์พระครูพิพิธอยู่ในนอกครับ
เดี๋ยวก็ห้องน้ำแล้วมั้งพระครูเนี่ย
โอเค 1 2
โอเคไหมครับ
โอเคครับ
Okay, thank you so much for taking picture together. And before we leave this room, we will give out the QR code or the link to survey form to confirm your name on the certificate. Okay, let's see. Yes. So please check your name and your email. Make sure they spell correctly for the certificates. And please note that the certificate will be given to those who complete the evaluation form only. And the certificate will be sent where you email within 7 days. If you haven't received, please contact IBSC staff. You can see today's video from IBSC Facebook page. You can search IBSC MCU in Facebook, and also you can add the IBSC live from the QR code that you see on the screen here. Yes, thank you very much. Make sure you check your name correctly.